Hello and welcome to another episode of The Laws of Minecraft with me, LawFromChaos. And today we're going over our building guide once more. And as you can see, I've done quite a bit of work since the last time we were here, so I just wanted to go over everything that had been done and how to replicate it yourself. Okay, so first of all, we're going to look at the chunk boundaries to understand what has been going on. You'll recall that I built this building slightly offset, so that it's 16, 16, and 15 in the middle so that I could have an odd number for my own purposes. So you go out here again, you see that we are off by 1 on this side. It's 1 over, but this one on this side, it should go exactly to it, and it does. Now this means when you're building inside that you do have to take this into account. If I can get back in. Okay, so as you can see, because this side from this block over to the end of the chunk here is only 15 blocks, I actually extended it right here so that it would be a 16 over here and then a 16 wide over here. It's exactly as it ought to be. This one you can see as fully contained by the chunk, so this one is with inside, and then this one right here, if we were to break a piece, for example, you can see the green line right there in alignment with it, and it is exactly on the chunk boundaries, exactly as we expected. It's what we want. Okay, so in order to take advantage of this, you may recall I had some dirt lines running along the floor to keep track of where this was. You can see the line in the snow there where it was. And so that's where I actually put my oh-so-lovely columns. Now these are obviously not finished. They're very much rough. And you can see I've done a little more work on just one of them. And I wanted to go over how to do that. But the first thing I did was build the columns up. And these columns are, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18 blocks up to the next level here. And I put a little bit extra right here that may or may not stay, I'm not sure. But I ended up building out platforms here, and I used the filler for that. I'm not going to go over how to do that because my previous videos have shown how to do that with the filler more than once. I'm going to assume you know how to do that, but each of these was, as before, that they're 15 wide on each side because obviously they're supposed to be a full chunk worth, but the wall takes up one space of that 16. So I went ahead and built that, and you'll notice right here there's this lovely boundary here. This right here because we're dealing with between this block here and the wall, 16 in between is 14. And so with using that information I was able to build a half circle based around 14. And I used plots.com for this particular one. I went into the ellipse modification and found this. And that's plots with a Z, by the way, I believe. And so that's what I did. But you'll notice, because of the way I built these pillars, and you'll notice that they are on the chunk boundary, 1 on each side, so you can see that red line, that's the chunk boundary corner. So I built it on 1 on each side, and obviously on this side it's 1 outside that chunk, and on this side it's contained within. And so I just built that all the way down, and by following those chunk corners it was very easy just to build those 2 each time. And so I built that all the way across. And so that was my starting place for these. But because I did that, you'll notice that again, you see, look at this, it's 1 block in and 1 block in this way, which means this is also 14, which means I'll be able to build this exact same structure this direction as well, which is exactly what I intend to do. And eventually I'll probably be doing a merging system where I end up merging all of this stuff together, and it creates inverted systems, but we won't get into that right now. I just did want to just show you how this works really briefly. So starting from the center here, we are down, so you get those 2 blocks right there, and then it comes down and it goes out 2 more, see, like that, and got the little square there, and then it's got a little 3, and then 5, and then 8. That's exactly how it was done, and it's just mirrored on the other side. And that allows us to create a half circle. Oh, looks like we just lost the internet, so I'll be back in a half second. Okay, we're back. Alright, and I also built a small design into the floor, and it's designed to follow the chunks in the best way possible. Now these are obviously, excuse me, as you can see, it's ending with an odd number, but these are even. So what happens if you look at the chunk boundaries is it does not actually make it all the way back. Instead, then the beginning of the next chunk is when it starts over. If I wanted to do this exactly flawlessly, I could have. I just would have stopped here, doubled it over, and gone back or there, and it would have ended up right here, and then repeated over here. Oop. Okay, sometimes the internet does weird things. Okay, so this pattern is a repeating one. I happen to use Holy Stone from Chisel, and if you haven't seen the Chisel mod before, I sincerely recommend using it. I'm just going to briefly show you what happens when you open it. Why don't I just carve one of these up and I'll show you what happens. Okay, so when you open the Chisel mod, you can put a block in it. In this case, it's marble. No, this isn't marble. Sorry, this is Holy Stone, which is made with 8 smooth stones surrounding one thing of a feather. And this would be the default that you'd get out of it right here, this little Holy Stone. Pretty looking. It has a little texture star thing that goes with it, and I think they produce a very tiny amount of light, but I'm not absolutely certain about that. I do know that they are transparent to light, however, so there are certain advantages to that, because I'm actually going to be lighting much of my floor from beneath and have it appear to be coming from the Holy Stones underneath. And so I'm doing that, and you can see there's a lot of different designs here. Very, very nice. So you can do smooth, and a lot of these textures will connect with each other and do different things when they're next to each other. In this case, I was doing a diagonal structure, so it didn't really matter, but I just wanted the best looking one. So I happened to use the Mysterious Holy Stone symbol one. That's what this one is. I happen to like it. But in terms of decorating in general, Chisel is a great mod. Has tons of stuff for even the basics that make them look cool, like dirt and stone and mossy stone and etc., sand, yada yada yada. Okay, so I'll get off my soapbox now. So I built that pattern in a mirrored pattern over here. You can see they both are like that, and you can see there's still snow everywhere. I'm going to eventually clean all of that up. It's just haven't gotten to it yet. Okay, and now you can see if you actually, I'm going to go over how to do this ME system integration at the end of this episode. So if you want to stick around for that, that's fine, but I want to go into decoration for those who are more interested in decorating, because I'm going to separate everything out, because there's a lot of different ways or reasons somebody might want to build a structure like this. Some of them are just purely decorative. This might be, for example, somebody might want to build something like this purely as a spawn, which just makes perfect sense. I mean, it's a nice house. It's a nice place, and it's big enough that you could do a whole series of demonstrations and sets and so on the sides. Showing this is how it happens, this is how you claim land, yada yada yada. Okay, so in this next part here, I used carpenter's blocks and elevators and a few other things to give myself little gardens. Now, as you can tell, above them for the moment is still stone, but I am eventually going to be changing the roof, but I won't be doing that until I have actually my basic roof format in place, so I can alter it from that. And I did that twice, and so I did that on 4 chunks in on each side. So this is actually very simple, not necessarily particularly cheap if you don't have the right materials, but you can always alter with something else, obviously. Now, these are the only thing that people might not know how to use properly, these and the elevators, and so I just want to show you what these are. These are Carpenter's wedge slopes. They're from the Carpenter's block mod, and they'll take on the texture of whatever block they're clicked with. For example, these ones I clicked with quartz, and then it does store the quartz, so it does take it up. You can't, for example, make an entirely diamond floor out of them without actually having all the diamonds to put in them. So I did that, and as you can see, lots and lots of quartz all the way around, yada yada yada. And so that's my first layer. And then I use Certus quartz as a variation, but still another form of quartz to keep my pattern in place all the way around. And because, as you see, I actually built them around these, but remember, this central portion is 15 in one direction, but remember, all these chunks are still 16 in the other direction, which means that they are uneven, which has certain practical uses. It means that I have to keep that into account. So it's wider this direction than it is in this direction, because I actually extended it outside the chunk. So I actually used it because this one right here to this one over here is 17 rather than 15. Normally it would actually be thinner, but I didn't want it to be only one block in the middle, and on these only be 4x4. I wanted to have them have a central block, and so I did it this way. And so by doing it this way, what happened is, by making it 17, I was able to do 3 this way, but 2 this way, and it still becomes even on these. So these are exactly 5x5. And I use mossy stone bricks, grass blocks, and various types of wood, trees. For variation, just so you know, this is amaranth, rowan, ghost wood, and just so you know, ghost wood, this one has to be planted on netherrack, which I did. And you'll notice there's some space under there. I'm not sure if I'm going to use it for anything or not, but just in case I need it, it's good sometimes to have extra space if you're going to do something with transparent blocks, etc. It's one of those things like, you may not need this, but it might be useful. And then I used cherry wood, and this one I believe is the white cherry, white cherry leaves. Okay. And then I used moonstone, and I used the chisel blocks again, but instead of doing the standard wedge slope, I used the prism slope. And you can actually change them by doing this. You hold it, and then you press shift and go through your middle mouse rotation, and it will switch between types. Unfortunately, it does not switch between all the possible types it's capable of actually creating. You can change them with Carpenter's hammer and Carpenter's, I think it's screwdriver. Maybe it's a Carpenter's chisel. Either way, one of those, which allows you to actually have more options. I wish, oh how I wish, they would allow you to go through every possible variation by that rotation. That would make things so much easier. But it's still useful to have it that way, even if it doesn't have everything. So these ones I put on, and one thing about Carpenter's blocks, they will take on the properties the block put there. For example, if you put obsidian in there, it is going to be dang hard to break. It's going to take on obsidian's hardness and mining time. And in this case, since I've used a chisel variation for glowstone, that's what this is. I don't think I have it on me, but it's a chisel variation for glowstone. It will break reasonably quickly and has the sound. The one nice thing about chisel is if you put a glowstone or another breakable block like glass in there, I don't think you can put straight glass, I'm not sure, but if you put another breakable block in there, it will not break. What will actually happen is it will just become out of it instead. And so just so you know what this is glowstone, neon glowstone from the Chisel mod. Yeah, like I said, it was Chisel mod. I love Chisel mod. So I'm just going to show you how I made this real quick. As you can see, it's moonstone. That is a rare material unless you have the right magical crops, which will produce it, which still will take a little while to make this much, but unless you have, oops. Yeah, I'm not sure if this will break. Yeah, it does break. So that's why you don't press the wrong thing. But there it is, and I'm going to pull out my, so I've just lost permanently a small portion of that, and that's okay. That's not like I don't have plenty of everything. Yeah, I've got 66k glowstone. Plenty. So there we go. So it takes it up and absorbs it, and it puts out light because that's one of its properties. Okay, over here, everything as far as the structural side is the same, but we have rowan instead of the alder. I have alder over here. So I was thinking it was rowan. It's alder. I think I was getting confused with something, I guess. This is alder, yeah. Oh, I think there's some rowan leaves and alder leaves mixed together. Don't ask me how that works. Okay, but this is an alder tree. This one over here is rowan. You can tell by the lovely red berries that show up on it. And then this is pink cherry. And then this is sakura, which is also another type of cherry, but it's a different mod, so it looks different. Each of them is very pretty. And then this is maple right here from Natura. And in the middle, only thing I haven't gone over on this part here is there's an elevator in the center. Elevators are very simple. They work directly above and below, like so. So if I'm on one and I want to go beneath it, if there's an elevator directly lined up with it with nothing in between, and they can handle a little bit in between, but if there's nothing in between, you can press shift and go downwards. But they do have a maximum range. It's somewhere around 20 blocks. And so if you want to do it more, you can actually create a whole series of them and go the one up, and then if you had another one, for example, above me up there, I could press it up again and it would go take me upwards. And so that's how these will work. These are designed to take me down underneath. Okay, so that's all the conventional building section, though you can see that I am starting to build areas set aside for different mods, as I told you I would, in one of my earlier mod spots. Or not mod spots, but building guides for this particular setup. We're just going to... Nice thing about Carpenter's blocks, very easy to break when they're just plain. Okay, so I did want to talk about how this setup worked underneath here. Okay, so you can see I'm actually hiding it with, it says Amy Cable when I'm on it, but I'm actually hiding it with a very specific block. Let's find this. You can make facades with the Buildcraft, and you make these with the laser assembly with a assembly table. It's structural pipes, I think cobblestone or stone structural pipes with what the material you want to make it out of, and then you make it. And you can use, and they'll attach to ME cables and some types of power, but not all. For example, I use Ender.io here, so I had to use Ender.io facades instead, or conduit facade, something like that, instead, in order to make sure that those operated differently. I have it over here. Let me see. You can see here, it disappears into that block. Yeah, it's a conduit facade. It disappears into that block. These are actually even more effective in many ways than the these type of facades, because they don't even leave any holes in them. They just go straight through, and that's all it is. It looks like that block to all intents and purposes. So these are underneath, and I'm using a storage bus system. I'm probably going to build something around down here, you see, to highlight this area so that I know that this is where these are, so I can get up and down very easily. So I've got an obsidian chest, and underneath is an ME storage bus, and so you can determine what is being stored in here. And this, you can tell, is all my Art of Magica 2 stuff, or at least the stuff I have a small enough amount that it's worth storing in this obsidian chest. And my Oculus, etc. But all these also have to have a crafting terminal, because it means I can produce items, and also I can go through all of my resources at each of these locations for every mod. And by building storage buses like this, I can minimize the amount of drives I'm actually using. This is important for a number of reasons. One is to minimize lag and other problems like that. But also, on the server I happen to be playing, you're limited to 2 drives, and that's just that's a lag server issue. And they're like, well, let's make it fair to everybody. Everybody can have 2 drives, etc. And I use the Ender.io on this one. This is why the conduit facade's there. There's Ender.io cables for liquids and for energy going through here, which allows it, with that conduit facade, to look as though it is completely unsupported, but still be having liquid force and MJ flowing into it. So that's exactly why I did that. So that, I believe, is all the important things that I have done so far on this. There's still tons of work to do. I mean, if nothing else, I need to do this both directions, and that is going to take me a very long time. But that's okay. That's life. You just deal with that. It will take me some time. Okay. So the world out here is beautiful and lovely, and I believe we've gone over everything. If you guys have any questions, feel free to leave me comments, and I'll be more than happy to answer anything. Or if you have anything you want me to demonstrate, etc. Alright, I'll see you guys all later.